Today we're doing a oral history interview. I'm Taylor Swords, and I'm with Dr. Sarah Gordon. All right. You said you were a professor at Georgia College.
I was there for 30, really altogether 35 years. I came there in 1968 with a master's degree because there was an opening in the English department, and I loved Flannery O'Connor, and she had been dead 4 years, and so I was offered the job and took the job.
So, what was it like when Georgia College became like a liberal arts institution?
Oh, it was really wonderful, and it was essentially because of Flannery O'Connor, because we had the O'Connor papers. Flannery was a day student. She walked from the Klein house to the campus, and she graduated in 3 years because she was really smart. And she was a character. She was a character. Apparently, she would walk down the halls, and if you saw her and she was a friend, she would say, "Greetings." That's the way she wouldn't say hi. She'd say, "Greetings." The first time I ever went to Andalusia, I was with Regina O'Connor, Flannery's mother, 1968. Yeah. And time we did that, the director of the library and I had to go out and take the paintings off the wall at Andalusia where they were. And according to Mrs. O'Connor, they had to go back exactly where they had been. So we had to draw maps of the rooms and put what painting went where. I mean, that's how strict the family was about all of her stuff.
What all did you study at Georgia College? Like you said that you studied her while you were a professor here.
Well, I edited the journal, the Flannery O'Connor Bulletin and the Flannery O'Connor Review, and scholars came from all over the world, so I talked to them. We talked to each other. I exchanged ideas, and they wanted to work in the collection and look at the manuscript drafts and so forth. So it was all a learning experience for me. And actually, I helped catalog the papers. There were 7,000 pages of typescript, and I went after the two guys who had originally done it to check it. So that meant I had to know Flannery O'Connor inside out to know if they were putting the pages in the right chronological order and the right order for every work. So that was a learning experience for me too. So, when you're interested in something, as we were saying before, when you're interested in something and you follow your passion, you get to meet really interesting people and you get to learn all this kind of stuff. Okay, I would say to college students, take advantage of everything you can while you're there. This is the most privileged time of your life when you can not just, go to the bars or go to concerts, the music that and you listen to all the time on your phones, but try everything you can try in terms of concerts, poetry readings, lectures. This is the most expansive time of your life.
So how aware of Flannery O'Connor's work and life were you in the late 50s to 60s?
Not a lot. Um, my mom uh, had a Cub Scout unit and had me go as one of the older, you know, past Cub Scout age. Uh, I guess associate leaders or something, to Flannery O'Connor's estate over there at Andalusia, and she was in very, very ill health. Um, I remember there were peacocks on the ground. Um, and they would occasionally, spread out their feathers, and it was impressive. And the peacock calls are terrifying, uh, and so they would have that. But there was some sort of associate or assistant of Flannery O'Connor who showed us around because she was too ill to do it herself. And part of the estate was in terrible disrepair. And we went into one area and they were uh, refining cane into sugar. And it was very primitive, but you could get the feel of boiling the syrup up into sugar, and it had that very strong, sweet, but kind of pungent smell to it. And then we went into this area that must have been an old barn or something, and there were books scattered around, just random books scattered around. And the associate said, that Ms. O'Connor said, you could have any of these you want because we're just going to throw them away. And I picked up one, and I still have it to this day. It was a first edition Edgar Allan Poe. It's an amazing. And I remember I was a big fan of Poe at the time. I was heavily into Robert Louis Stevenson, Edgar Allan Poe, even Bram Stoker. During the period of time I was in the seventh grade, everybody used to talk about they were into monster movies, as they called them then, because you had Friday night uh, old scary movies that would come on TV. But I wanted to read the real book, so I read Bram Stoker and Mary Shelley, and Robert Louis Stevenson and people like that. I read the original books, the original stories, and I picked up Edgar Allan Poe, and boy, was I hooked. And his books were so amazing, the way that he would describe things. And here I had one in Flannery O'Connor's barn that was one of the original editions. And it still thrills me to think about it. Because of the influence that he had. Frankly, it wasn't until my freshman year at Georgia Tech that they made me read anything by Flannery O'Connor. The high school didn't cover her stuff. They didn't have it. They made us, read the usual stuff, the William Shakespeare and uh, the, the Samuel L. Clemens and things that you would expect like that. No Flannery O'Connor. And I was not introduced to her until I went to college. And I remember the stories about the man who stole the leg from the young woman that had an artificial leg, and the story about the parrot that was ascending to heaven and that represented the Holy Spirit to her. These stories were just weird, just so disturbingly weird. And yet they weren't frightening like when you read Edgar Allan Poe, or even if you read Arthur Conan Doyle, some of those stories were pretty frightening. But Flannery O'Connor's was just something so unique and off, and you could hear the accents as you're reading how she would write them into her story. That didn't seem unnatural to me, but when you're in a place like Georgia Tech, and a lot of students have come from New Jersey or Ohio or maybe even from India or China, they don't get it. And so you're reading it and it seems, yeah, okay, I heard that when I was growing up.
And you said you went to Andalusia. What was your first experience there?
Well, I think when I went there, it was because my aunt Marriott was I think she and Flannery met maybe the first or second Christmas we after we moved to Milledgeville, and because they were both writers, um, um, I don't know who took the initiative, but then they became really close friends, and so when Marriott would come to town, she would sometimes say to me, "Do you want to come?" Because
there's going to be a reading, some college students will be there, and you can just listen in, or if you want. And I mean, I was young. I was 13, 14, 15, but I just remember there was this wonderful atmosphere of kind of excitement about her writing and what she was trying to say, and it was something like I'd never experienced, so I was very intrigued by it. But then once I began to read Flannery O'Connor, of course, it's a very disturbing language and kind of portrayal of the South.
Dr. Lee compares her Aunt Marriott and Flannery O'Connor's personalities to rebelling against the traditional Southern roles for women of the era.
I mean, she and my aunt were both wonderful examples of sort of rebels who were not going to grow up to be, sedate and gracious women serving tea, iced tea in the backyard. And, they were going to do their own thing, and I resonated with that.
Dr. Lee describes the tensions between her Aunt Marriott and Flannery's mother, Regina, as Marriott would try to convince Flannery to travel to New York and move there.
Because Regina saw her as a threat, kind of. Marriott kept saying, "You got to get out of this place. Come back to New York." And Flannery had spent some time in New York. And my aunt was, she was brazen. She would do things that weren't really acceptable. Like she'd fly into Atlanta and ask the yard man to drive up and pick her up. Well, you can't do that. You can't have a black man driving where she sits in the front seat. That was just a no-no. But she would, and my father would say, "Marriott, you're in the South. Just you've got to accommodate the customs." And my Marriott would roll her eyes, and she would try, but she wasn't very. You never knew what she might do. Is the way I think she felt.
I know with Flannery, she wrote a lot of her characters kind of based on, allegedly, her mom and the people around her. Do you ever wonder if your aunt was based on one of those characters she made?
Yeah, I think that the one Revelation, I think, is a story that there's a lot of just articles that have been written about it, but that is one of my favorite stories, Revelation, that she wrote. And there's it's a doctor's office, and there's this mother who brings a daughter in who's really kind of just loses it in the doctor's office, and often there have been articles written that character was sort of shaped around Marriott and what she was like, and I think she was going away to college at Wellesley or someplace like that, which